Today, we're gonna talk about an election. We're gonna analyze one of the most complex and decisive political processes in recent Peruvian history, because the 2026 general elections in Peru are not just another electoral event, they're a turning point. And what's at stake here is not just who's gonna win power, it's whether the Peruvian political system can even keep functioning. And to understand this, we can't just look at polls or candidates or campaigns. We gotta look at this through political science. So let's start with clarity. On April 12, 2026, Peru's gonna elect a president, vice presidents, deputies, senators, and representatives to the Andean Parliament. But here's the key point. For the first time in decades, Peru's going back to a bicameral Congress. That means two chambers, a lower house and a senate, and this doesn't just change a structure. It changes how power works, how decisions get made, how laws move, and how political negotiation happens. So the real question is, what kind of election is this? This is not a normal elections. This is happening in a system with weak parties, low public trust, and extreme fragmentation. In other words, the problem isn't just the candidates. The problem is the system. To understand this, we need political theory. Robert Dahl argued that democracy isn't just about voting. It requires real pluralism and real competition. And here's the issue. Peru has competition, but it doesn't have a strong representation. Joseph Schumpeter said, democracy is a method for choosing leaders. By that definition, Peru is democratic, but that doesn't mean it works. Giovanni Sartori warned that system with too many weak parties became unstable, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Guillermo O'Donnell talked about delegated democracy, where people elect leaders, but once elected, those leaders govern with very few constraints, and that is Israel. Now we'll get to the core issue. Peru doesn't have an electoral crisis. It has a representation crisis. People don't feel represented. Parties don't function as real institutions. They act as temporary vehicles, and that leads to personalities. Politics becomes about individuals, not programs. So how do voters behave? They're not ideological. They're reactive. They punish. They look for order. They vote strategically. And they switch quickly. So they're not choosing the best candidate. They're choosing the least rejected one. Now let's talk about the main issues: security and corruptions. Insecurity creates fear, and fear changes everything. People start choosing order over freedom, and that's dangerous because tough on crime is often just rhetoric. And the same goes for corruptions. Talking works, real solutions are much harder. Now, bicameralism will it help? It depends. It can improve debate, but it can also increase conflict, more actors, more vital points, more negotiation. There are three major risks: electoral delegitimation, concentration of power, and authoritarian drift. And remember this: democracy doesn't collapse suddenly, it can erode slowly. This isn't about left versus right. This is about whether the system can survive it, because Peru's real problem isn't the lack of elections. It's the lack of representation, trust, and governability. If you really want to understand politics, subscribe, share, and join the conversation, because understanding politics is the only way not to be manipulated.